I will call this special town council meeting for our annual budget presentation to order at 7:04 p.m. Let's please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so on the agenda, there are no action items. Instead, this is a presentation and then an opportunity for the public to comment on the budget that the town council adopted a couple weeks ago. So I'll jump right into it and start our budget presentation. I will share my screen for those on Zoom. All right, we're good to begin. Get the screen to advance. Okay, so tonight we're going to go through a high-level review of the budget and the process and show where we are on the timeline here for adopting a budget for the next fiscal year. Then I'm going to go through a summary of budgetary expenditures and also the revenue. And then finally, we'll have an opportunity for public input. Okay, so here's a timeline of how the budget process has looked this year. At the beginning of the year, it starts with our capital budget hearing, which was back in February. Also in the January-February timeframe, the Board of Education works up on their budget proposal and sends it to the council about middle of February. Later in the month of February, we have a joint meeting with the Board of Education to discuss their proposal. And then in March, the town manager submits his proposed budget to the council, and we have 3 special meetings to review that, followed by a public hearing at the beginning of April, and then followed by a meeting where we vote and adopt our own budget to send to referendum, which happened on April 3rd. That brings us to the present, where we have our annual budget presentation on the council's adopted budget, not the manager's proposal, which happens before we send the budget to referendum on May 6th. At this stage, the budget proposal cannot be changed. It goes to referendum as is. And if that referendum should fail, there will be a special council meeting where we will revise the budget for it to be sent out to referendum again up until we have a budget that passes. This is a high-level summary of the proposed budget this year. General government or town operations are increasing by 3.12%. Board of Education expenditures are increasing by 2.99%, so relatively similar increases on the town and Board of Education side. Capital improvement expenses are increasing by 41.98%. There's no change in our debt, and that brings us for a total increase of 3.01%, or about $1.9 million. On the town side, some of the big things driving costs this year are health insurance increases, $139,000. Additionally, we have salary increases of about $192,000. And then a few smaller items, community activities, a transfer out for the 2029 revaluation for property taxes, which we need to start putting away money for now, as well as an increase to our legal budget, $10,000. Which brings us to the aforementioned 2.99% increase on the town side. On the Board of Education side, we have some cost drivers as well, including contractual increases for transportation costs, contractual salary increases, special education cost increases, and then IT equipment, insurance, and energy are also rising, driving that. Approximately 3% Board of Education increase. Additionally, the general fund portion of the capital improvements pay-as-you-go increased by $166,829. As you know, any large equipment that you need to purchase or buildings that need to be renovated or built requires capital funds, which are funded through a variety of ways, including funds from that are contributed from the general fund and bonds, as well as special funds. So the general fund portion of the capital improvements pay-as-you-go portion increased by $166,000 this year. Additional important budget information. This year's use of the fund balance is $527,000, including the following one-time expenditures: $166,829 for capital improvements. This is a very appropriate use of the unassigned fund balances to use it for one-time expenditures that are in the capital plan and needed to be replaced or done. Additionally, we're allocating $60,000 for Fitch recommendations. For those who may not know, we recently conducted a public safety fire department study, which will be something that the council will get to review in the relatively near future, and as well as the public. And there are some recommendations up in that study to improve and enhance our public safety in town. So this is some money to allow us to act relatively early and quickly upon those recommendations. However, it's all coming from the fund balance, so not impact to the tax rate. Additionally, we are proposing using $300,000 from the Municipal Tax Stabilization Fund. This is the maximum amount per ordinance to use from the fund. And this just breaks that out, the whole budget up on a pie chart. As you can see, Board of Education is the lion's share of the proposed budget, of approximately 70%. The town operations are at 22%. And then the remaining 9% is between capital improvements and debt services. On this chart, you can look at our revenue side. The colored portion of this pie chart shows mainly our grants and revenues that we get from licenses and permits and investment income. So in other words, we're looking at the non-property tax portion of the budget. And on this side, you can see the property tax, which funds 79% of our town expenditures. On this chart here, you can see the estimated taxes for residential and commercial property. As everybody knows, the exact tax bill that you pay depends upon the value of your home. So I encourage residents to look and calculate their own property tax to see how this budget actually impacts them. But for this purposes of discussion, we've taken 3 different price points in the market to look at the tax impact for both residential and commercial property. Important to know that this is the first budget impacted by the recent revaluation in property values. We're required by law to do a revaluation every 5 years. And in this particular revaluation, the share of the grand list that was residential property became larger in proportion to commercial property. So that's why you'll see the commercial property or property tax bills went down, whereas residential went up. It was due to that shift primarily from commercial to residential. Town council recognized that impact, and we worked to find some solutions to help mitigate this shift in the tax burden, which I understand is a difficult one for taxpayers, and we want to do what we can. $527,000 of fund balance is utilized. That includes the amounts mentioned up on earlier slides. Additionally, we increased our revenue collection rate assumption slightly, so that's more in line with the actual percent of the grand list that we have collected in the past couple of years. Additionally, we revised our education cost sharing funding assumptions. Due to some good progress on the legislative level, we feel confident that we're going to get the same amount as we did last year rather than lose $300,000. So that is built up into the budget assumptions, which helps everybody out because it's more revenue that we're assuming we're going to get, safely assuming that we're going to get, I should mention. Additionally, we work with the Board of Education to utilize some utilities internal service fund monies and swap some capital items to help better support their budget needs. We ran this by our town finance department to make sure that the proposals made sense and were ones that we would feel prudent about doing, but we worked with them to try to help them out a little bit. And additionally, as mentioned, we used $300,000 from the tax stabilization fund, which is the maximum amount allowed per ordinance. This slide here shows the spending increase for Tolland relative to other communities. We'll note that like Tolland, most of these communities, maybe all of them, haven't passed or adopted a budget, but this is the proposals that they're looking at. Tolland comes in a little bit towards the low end compared to other communities, very similar to Ellington in terms of a % increase. And this is the budget referendum question 1 that'll be proposed to voters. Same form as it typically is in years prior. As I mentioned, the tax rate or mill rate, due to the revaluation, actually will go down significantly in this budget referendum. But as always, I encourage residents to go and calculate the impact for themselves, fully understand what that means. And some additional information up on the referendum up on May 6th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. at the library program room right here in the Hicks building. Additionally, there will be a second question up on the ballot. At the meeting where we adopted the budget, council voted to add a second question which asks voters if they voted no, why did they vote no, yes or no. Obviously, just like ballot question 1, it's an anonymous question, but we encourage you to fill it out to give us some more feedback. So it's something to definitely use it in our future discussions. In this presentation, which is public, we have a link to calculate your property tax. And we also have some information up on some tax relief programs available to qualified property owners. Please reach out to the town if you're struggling with your property tax bills. There may be some options for you. We encourage you to explore those. Okay, more information about voting, along with some helpful phone numbers that you can help contact. That concludes the presentation. So, like I said, presentations available in a publicly posted agenda and meeting packet for this meeting. So if you would like to look at it further, you're welcome to. But with that, I'll open it up to public participation. We'll do it as we usually do. So I'll go to the room first. Please state your name and address, and then we'll alternate between those in the room and those online. So with that, I'll go to the room. Is there anybody in the room who'd like to make public comment? Seeing none, I'll go online. Back to the room.
Good evening, Dennis Keegan, Tolland Stage Road, 689, that is. I guess many thoughts, and I'll try to be succinct. First of all, I think, from my perspective, shame on all of you, every single one of you, okay? For many things. First of all, having this session in the middle of vacation week for schools is pathetic, okay? Whether anyone cares out there or not, I don't know, but it just is symptomatic of the lack of transparency that this town council and town hall tends to have, okay? Next, I think it's also deplorable that in this budget, the town portion of the budget I sat through it all, got everything you'd want, okay? And then the schools got the, you know what, chopped out of it, okay? And if you really want a better look, you should take the increase, the entire increase out of the town and flow it over to the schools. In addition to that, why are you holding on to that reserve? Why don't you take that excess money you have there and put it towards your assumed one-time expense and health benefits, okay? And another thing to look at is if you're gonna do all that to the high school and the school system, then you know what? Get further cuts out of the town. Put people on part-time so they don't get benefits. I'm not a believer in no benefits, but if you're gonna do what you're doing to the school system, then everybody in town has to feel the pain, not just the parents with kids. Okay, and with that, I hope this, quite honestly, this budget crashes and burns. And that my recommendation going forward would be to have priority ranking for budgets and not just have one man or one person decide what it's going to be that you all fall in line to, and then have that be what goes up there for a yes or no vote. Have the budget that the Board of Ed wants, have the budget that the town manager wants, have the budget that the Republicans want, okay, and put it up their priority ranking, and then the top two people will decide on. A different approach is needed here because this is not democracy, not at all, not by a short, tall message. Thank you. As always, I enjoy seeing all of you.
Thank you. We'll go online to Mark Gilchrist. Are you on mute, Mark?
I think I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just had a question. I'm trying to figure out the math with the link where you can take the new mill rate, the new proposed mill rate, and calculate to see what your new tax bill will be. And when I did mine, it came out to an increase of about I'm talking about the real estate tax. It came out to an increase of about 8% or so. But I have seen online that some people are saying their real estate taxes are going up 10, 12, even 15%. So I guess my question is, if the budget's going up 3%, how does a person's individual tax bill go up by 8, 10, or even more?
It's not usually a back and forth, but maybe up in this case, I think it's a question that, yeah, town manager Foley will reach out to you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. We'll go back to the room. We'll go back online. We'll go back to the room. Go back online. Go back to the room. Go back online. I'll go back to the room one more time. Go online one more time. All right. Seeing no other further public participation, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, we're all in the room, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.